Dear children who have come from NCC, from colleges, schools, it's a great pleasure for me to be here today to attend this wonderful seminar and be able to interact with you. From what I heard today and what I have been briefed had happened earlier yesterday, I can see that this entire seminar has been all-encompassing. We have covered a lot of ground from medieval times to historical perspectives to the present day activities, and then we have talked of various means and methods which can help us secure the state against what could be a threat that is manifested in our neighbor. Arunachal is a sensitive state, and believe you me, it is the Prime Minister's vision today to develop the entire Northeast, and there is a ministry ensuring that. And within the Northeast, I think he has a special consideration for Arunachal Pradesh. He has said so officially, publicly and privately. And he very well understands the dynamics of Arunachal, which is surrounded, which has 3 international boundaries, and it is in the middle of this problem with China. Therefore, as a part of the larger vision of the Honorable Prime Minister of Viksit Bharat, there is a compelling need for Arunachal to become Viksit Arunachal. Only when we become Viksit, we become strong and capable, then the ability of the country to look east, act now, will become a reality. It's a long-term vision, and a developed Arunachal will become a fulcrum for India's policy to deal with Southeast Asia. That being the vision, it is imperative that we talk of Arunachal in every which way. What has happened in the last 8 to 10 years, I think it's an eye-opener. As a lot of our friends from here have mentioned today that people don't know us, they don't treat us well, which is a fact of life. But we are in the process of correcting this misinformation. The development which has taken place in Arunachal has been phenomenal. I had the privilege of commanding 4 Corps in 2008 here, and when I came 2 years back, Arunachal was looking totally different. In 5 years, 4,000 kilometers of roads have been constructed. The Vibrant Village program is a strategic program which is aimed at strengthening the villages closer to the border so that they could become a part of the larger defense mechanism of our borders. And unlike Ladakh, Sikkim, Himachal, Arunachal villages are 20 to 40 kilometers away from the border, which is a matter of great concern. In all other areas, the villages are right on the line of actual control. I have had the privilege of serving through this entire area from Ladakh to Arunachal. And whatever I have to say is with my perception and experience that I have had. And the main thing is how to deal with the Chinese. So I definitely say a few things which I feel must be known to this audience, especially to my friends here from Arunachal themselves. So let's start by understanding the adversity. Every time you want to settle a score, every time you want to find answers to situations, it is very important for us to understand who is creating these problems. And we all know it's our big neighbor China. Now if you look at the Chinese way of things, and in the military parlance we get to understand their doctrines and philosophies which are not talked of generally because they have military implications. At the cost of repeating, I would like to make a statement as to what is the war zone concept of China. That reads something like this, that China will be ready to fight short, swift wars with its neighbors under conditions of informatization, which means that they have an expansionist trend and tradition, and they continue to play with it. If you look at the map of China, they were a small country. Over the years, when their dynasties were ruling, they took Turkmenistan on the northwest, Russian territory. Then they took Inner Mongolia. Then they took Manchuria on the northeast. And when they got independence in 51 they took it. Today China is 3 times the size of its original landmass. And because it has become one of the economic giants today, they call the shots. So we have to contend with China, which is economically superior, which is also a nuclear power, which is a P5 in UN, and which has an immense indigenous industry, military. It is now in the last 10 years that we are getting on to Indianization and manufacture of defense weapons and equipment within the country. Right from independence, the way our leaders had seen the country's rise, they felt that our borders are very remote, they are in extremely difficult terrain, not a blade of grass grows in Ladakh and these areas. So there was no perception of any threat from anyone. We were into a Panchashil agreement with China, Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai. And that's when they turned it on us in 62 happened. We were not prepared then. But whatever happened in Ladakh, mainly, and in Arunachal, our troops took a stand here, we suffered. But the one thing positive about 62 was that the people of Arunachal stood with the army, even then. And it is after 62 years, or rather 60 years after 62 battle was fought, that we honored the unsung heroes in the state. It could have been done many years before. Today, the Bonhoeffian relationship between the armed forces, the paramilitary forces, and the population is, I think, one of the best in the country. Arunachal is the largest land mass and the smallest population in the entire northeast. It has its advantages, it has its challenges at the same time. So when we look at the security aspect of Arunachal and we figure out the way the Chinese have been consistently claiming Arunachal as a part of theirs, we need to think of strategies to deal with it. In my experience, having served on all these areas, I realized that if we continue to be defensive, if we continue to be nice, if we continue to be in a state of Vasudev Kutumbakam, with folded hands, welcoming everyone, in good faith, it doesn't work with Chinese. They have continued to intrude into our areas time and again. They have refused to settle the boundary line. India probably is the only country in the world which is defending a non-existing line on the map. It's a very big challenge. And these borders are not small borders, almost about 2,000 kilometers, which exists around the state. So our task always becomes difficult in terms of number of troops, in terms of difficult areas to man, in terms of weapon systems, in terms of training and leadership. But over the years, the Indian Army has been able to adapt to these areas. And today we are in a position to make it prohibitive for China should it venture or should it go on a misadventure. Having said that, there is a need to find permanent solutions to the problems that we have. And I'm very happy that this seminar has been organized at the right time for us to discuss various ways and means which can be adopted by us, largely by the country and specifically by Arunachal itself, to ensure that there is protection for all times. So I would like to touch upon some of these challenges and then I'll also come upon some of the means and measures that we need to take. A lot of this has been discussed by the panelists here and I would not like to repeat that, but I would like to draw analogies from what has been discussed and I am keeping myself focused on Arunachal basically. The entire gamut of yojanas that has been part of the Honorable Prime Minister's vision of Viksit Bharat, there are about 35 to 40 yojanas which are running. It has changed the entire dimension of Northeast. And if you look at these yojanas, whether there are Sadak, Pani, Bijli, Dur Sanchar, Awas, Beti Bachao, so many of them, they conform to the sustainable development goals which are set by the United Nations. They also conform to the human rights which should be made applicable to everyone. And this is being made applicable basically to the areas where the populations are marginalized or they have not been able to progress. So what is the change that has happened? I said 4,000 kilometers of road have come up. There is electricity in the first villages. There is tap water. There are toilets. We were the first state to declare ourselves free of open defecation. And above all, there is 4G. The state has taken a lead from 1G to 4G. The result is that all those people who have been registered as beneficiaries, they have got bank accounts. And there is direct to bank transfers. There is no middleman. There is no one usurping the money that is due to them. But what is fascinating is that these people who live in faraway areas, there were no roads, there was no electricity, there was no facility. Actually, migration has started from these areas towards cities. Today they have accounts and they are digitally operating their accounts. It's a success story. The women of Arunachal are in the forefront. Whether it is education, maximum gold and silver medals when I go to the institutions to for convocations are won by the girls of the women. There are 6 women who have scaled Everest from Arunachal. There are a number of women who are participating in games like voodoo, judo, karate, wushu, and they are getting international and national medals. So recognition is coming to Arunachal this way or that. It is not someone who is observing that we don't get a chance to go out. People are learning about us. They are acknowledging that here lies a state which has got a great potential. And that is the reason we are economically progressing. The hydro projects today, we are already surplus. There are 13 more projects which are in the offing. When these are done, we will have almost 20 to 30,000 megawatt surplus power, which will go on the national grid. And the equity that we will give to Arunachal will be anywhere between 10 to 15,000 crores a year. The entire scene will change. We have done palm oil plantation. We plan to do it in 50,000 hectares. We have already done about 20% of this. When it is done, the whole country will become palm oil surplus. We will export palm oil, whereas we are importing it from South Asia. We are going in for rubber plantation. We are also planning to do that in about 50,000 hectares. When we do that, we will be able to export rubber. This is the cycle which has been envisioned. A lot of money is being spent to develop infrastructure, and we are creating facilities. They will earn the revenues to create this whole.